It was a Tuesday morning in the quiet suburb of Maple Grove, where the sun glinted off perfectly manicured lawns and the air smelled of fresh coffee. Ellen, a 52-year-old retired librarian, was heading into the local supermarket, her sidearm holstered discreetly at her hip, perfectly legal in their open-carry state. She moved with the calm assurance of someone who'd spent years training law enforcement, though few in this sleepy town knew her as anything more than a reserved neighbor. That is, until Margaret, the self-appointed guardian of Maple Grove's HOA, spotted her. What followed was a clash of wills that would unravel a community, expose raw tensions, and spark debates about power, justice, and the fine line between vigilance and obsession. Ellen and her husband, Tom, had lived in Maple Grove for 3 years, drawn by its low crime and friendly vibe. Ellen kept her job as a tactical instructor for the county SWAT team under wraps, preferring to blend in. That morning, she'd just returned from a training conference, her gear still unpacked, and strapped on her holster out of habit. Tom stayed in their truck to take a call while Ellen headed inside for milk and eggs. Across the parking lot, Margaret, tall, wiry, her polo shirt tucked tightly into khaki pants, locked eyes on Ellen's holster like it was a ticking bomb. Known for her HOA crusades, from finding unkempt mailboxes to interrogating delivery drivers, Margaret saw Ellen as her next target. Without a word, Margaret charged, her purse swinging wildly. "You're under citizen's arrest," she shrieked, brandishing a pair of purple fuzzy handcuffs. "You're endangering our families with that weapon." Ellen, unfazed, sidestepped the lunge, caught Margaret's wrist mid-swing, and said coolly, "You don't want this fight, Margaret." A crowd gathered, phones out, as Margaret stumbled back, yelling about assault. The store manager called the police, and when they arrived, Ellen handed over a card. The officer read it, his face paling. "Ma'am," he whispered, "she trains our SWAT team." Margaret's jaw dropped, but her fury only grew. By evening, Margaret had taken to the HOA forum, posting grainy photos of Ellen's holster with captions like "Armed threat in our midst." She plastered flyers around the neighborhood, urging residents to protect our kids and ban open carry. One flyer featured a zoomed-in shot of Ellen with a red circle around her hip, falsely quoting her as saying, "I'm above the law." Ellen didn't bite. Instead, she made a call. "Time for a field trip," she told a colleague, her voice steady. The next day, signs went up across from Margaret's house. "SWAT training site. Do not enter." Orange cones and armored vehicles rolled in, and by dawn, the lot was a mock battlefield. Margaret watched from her kitchen, binoculars trembling in her hands. At 7 a.m., the drills began loud, precise, relentless. Officers practiced hostage extractions and shield formations, their movements crisp under Ellen's command. Margaret snapped, storming out in a bathrobe and sun hat, waving a garden hose. "This is harassment," she screamed, spraying water that barely reached the officers. One raised a riot shield, deflecting the mist, and kept moving. Neighbors whispered, some amused, others alarmed. Margaret's online rant that night, titled "Tyranny in Maple Grove," went viral for all the wrong reasons, with comments mocking her attempt to out-cop a SWAT trainer with a hose. Undeterred, Margaret escalated. She printed fake press badges for herself and 2 friends, declaring themselves Maple Truth reporters. Marching to the training site, she demanded an interview, filming in selfie mode. Real reporters, invited by the police for a training segment, arrived and recognized her. "Aren't you the one with the fuzzy cuffs?" one asked. Margaret fled, her face crimson. Meanwhile, Ellen filed a formal complaint with the HOA, citing harassment and impersonation of law enforcement. At an emergency meeting, Margaret presented a PowerPoint, "Defending Our Streets," with a photoshopped image of Ellen beside a burning tank. The room sat stunned until Ellen laid out her evidence: open carry laws, a restraining order request, and a police affidavit confirming her credentials. The board was silent. Margaret stormed out, leaving her allies to scatter. The breaking point came when Margaret turned their cul-de-sac into a checkpoint, complete with cones, a whistle, and a barcode scanner she'd bought online. "All vehicles subject to search," her sign read. One neighbor backed away. Another yelled, "Have you lost it?" The HOA president demanded she stop, but Margaret cited a non-existent emergency defense clause. That evening, at a packed town hall, Margaret ranted for 40 minutes, accusing Ellen of leading a shadow militia. The crowd grew restless, Ellen stood, resigned from her HOA role, and handed over documents proving Margaret's illegal checkpoints and fund misuse. "I can't support a body that tolerates this," she said. The room erupted. Margaret fled, her evidence, folders spilling next-door screenshots. The fallout was swift. The HOA suspended Margaret, revoked her access, and faced an audit for her misuse of funds. A civil inquiry into her impersonation of a public officer followed. Her closest ally, Susan, defected, leaking emails where Margaret bragged about smoking out the gun nuts. When Margaret invited residents to a public exposure event, no one came. She stood alone in her driveway, projector unplugged, and quietly packed up. Weeks later, a for sale sign appeared in her yard. Margaret moved 2 towns over, leaving no trace. Ellen didn't gloat. She returned to her routine, training officers and sipping coffee on her porch. At a police charity event, she hit 5 bullseyes in a row, earning cheers. A kid in the crowd wore a shirt, "Trained by Ellen, arrested by Margaret." The neighborhood changed. Residents talked more, trusted more. The HOA passed the Margaret rule, banning fake patrols. Ellen declined to rejoin, saying, "I'll help from the sidelines." Maple Grove was peaceful again, but the story lingered, sparking heated debates online about vigilance, power, and justice. What do you think? Was Margaret a misguided protector or a danger to her community? Should Ellen have pushed harder legally, or was her restraint the real victory? Share your thoughts below, especially on how we handle conflict and injustice in our own lives. Let's hear your stand.